Thanks, everybody. Got an intimate gathering that we've got here. I'm going to talk about invitation and how do we invite communities and people who perhaps haven't thought about some of the issues around sustainability, who haven't thought about some of the issues around their role in changing the way that our lives currently are running to head towards a more kind of interconnected way of thinking about our resources and ourselves and our communities. And what I've been doing for the last 10 years as Encounters Art is that we have been trying to hone down this art of invitation so that we can really engage with, often people call communities kind of hard to reach. And for me, I often then say, who are they hard to reach by? They're often not hard to reach by themselves, they're hard to reach by people who perhaps haven't put in that time, consideration, as much craft into how do we invite people to join in, as well as what we're trying to ask them to join in with. So I'm going to share with you some of my key principles that I've developed over the last 10 years. So I'm giving away all of my knowledge and experience here because I think that it's vital. We haven't got masses of time. It's vital for me that we really look at the role that the arts can play in accelerating this change and to take communities with us and to take people with us. And then I'll talk about encounters as well. So the first principle of engagement that I wanted to share is it's not where you're going, it's being on the road that counts. And that's a Kerouac quote. And what counts even more is who you're traveling with and how they're invited. So often we might have a really clear agenda, and in this field of renewable energy, climate change, there's a lot of agendas at play, and there's a lot of people who are very, very fixed about this is where we've got to get. And often I'm talking about this idea of it's great to start, but actually we don't necessarily know where we're going, and that taking people with you on the journey is part of the change itself. It's not about the destination only. So as Encounters, I don't know if you can see that, we use arts to inspire creativity, dialogue and change between people of all ages and backgrounds. And one of the ways that we first started 10 years ago was by taking over a series of disused shops. And they were boarded up shops, they were in a neighbourhood, and we opened those as a place for people to come in and to talk about the joys and challenges of everyday life and experiences. And for me, there's something about when we're talking about ecological issues, when we're talking about energy, when we're talking about sustainability, that actually we need to be looking at the social issues that link with those things together, because they're often the way in. And as well as the shop projects, in a way, the projects that we set up across the country, which I'll show you a bit more about, that they're about setting up a space or an invitation for people to explore their relationship with themselves, with each other, with where they live and the wider world. So we're really interested in this kind of people, place and planet, that sometimes we can think that we can start at the level of inviting people to get involved in projects that affect their whole community. And often many people just aren't ready at that stage. It's quite a big ask to say, come and get involved in a big community project. And often what somebody needs is a sense of understanding who they are a bit more on that level first. Who am I? What's my identity? What's my relationship to my own resources? What's my relationship to my community? What's my relationship to energy? And then we can start looking on a neighbourhood level. What's my relationship with my neighbour, with my street, with my community? So we often work in terms of scale. I think it's very hard to start at a scale where we're asking people to take on board huge global issues. We have to be doing that at the same time as telling somebody, how is your life? What's your experience? What are your joys and challenges, as well as your community? And often we work a lot with past, present and future. So we're learning from the past, we check in with the present as a way to visioning the future. So we'd often do visioning with people as well. This is, I'm going to briefly talk about a few models that we've developed. This is a project called A Little Patch of Ground, which we've done for the last 6 years with different communities across the UK, in Liverpool, Doncaster, London, Devon, Plymouth. And it's an intergenerational group that we bring together to grow food, to learn about food growing based on permaculture principles. But also we show films and we raise awareness about ecological issues. And we talk about soil, we talk about the environment, and we talk about food. And then we also work with people to create a performance about their relationship to the natural world. So in some ways it is over 20 weeks we're building a community of people who are going to be more aware, knowledgeable, active, but we do it through creative methods and food growing that we've combined together. And the recruitment part of this project is probably 80% of the project, as well as the 20%, which is that we deliver it over 20 weeks, intergenerationally. It's quite an intense project. But I'm really passionate about, how do I get people involved in these projects? How do we offer those? And that's about how I am building that into my projects from the very, very beginning, and exploring methods that we can do that, and that the arts and creative approaches are really successful in inviting people in. Now this is a little patch of ground, you can see. So the second principle is to let curiosity be your guide, perhaps as people who might be interested in engaging people. People absolutely know, they can sniff it out if you're genuinely not interested in dialogue or exploration or open-ended inquiry. You know what it's like yourself. You're walking on the street and someone stops you and they're selling something to you. You can tell straight away that person has an agenda. That person's trying to get something out of me. That person is trying to take me somewhere that they think I should be. And so often what I'm interested in is, yes, I might have a vision, but it's about being curious. It's about this interaction that happens between people that I can say I'm genuinely interested in dialogue here, genuinely interested in stepping in the shoes of another to understand your perspective as well as my own. So let curiosity be your guide would be number 2. This is some images from the shop projects that we've done for the last 10 years. And we've engaged thousands of people off the street who've come into these shops that we've taken over. And we're just about to open our 10th shop in Andover. And sometimes these shops are commissioned by a council, a master planning process, a local community group. And all of them, we start the shops empty, and then we set up a series of what we call invitations to join in. You've got one of them over there near the pod today, which is a story sharing that some of you have seen. We've done that today. And we set up stations around a room where people come into the shop and we say nothing's for sale but lots is on offer. And over time, each of these stations around the room fill as people add their hopes, their concerns, as they add their images, they speak to strangers. They start to take a snapshot of their communities at this moment in time. And then in some of these shops, we can tailor questions around what concerns you, questions around what's your relationship with nature. At the same time as we're saying, who would you like to thank? What are you grateful for? What do you fear? All of these questions around what it's like to live now in this time of challenge and opportunity are what starts to fill the shop. And what we found again and again is that people are so separated from each other and siloed that really people get a huge amount from speaking to a stranger, from being able to leave a trace of themselves behind and feeling that they can add to something. So these are some snapshots from the shop. So my third principle is to offer more than one way in. Very often, if we're trying to engage communities, it's like there's just one offer And if I'm not interested in that, where do I go? So in a project, in an engagement project, we would always offer many different ways in that can allow people of different ages, abilities, backgrounds to find their way into a project or an issue. So have multiple entry points to your process. And for those of us who are interested in engaging people, I often really ask, how, where, for who am I making the offer to join in? Because that's quite a big responsibility to invite somebody to join in. And then always, what creative methods can we use to be lateral? So this was a mobile shop, I'll just go there, that we took around the streets of South Liverpool, and we went over 2 months to the same communities each week, and we stopped and we spoke to them, and we went back, and then we created an exhibition, and we created a book, and we created a performance about people's experience. So things can build as well as ongoing participation can be built into projects. This is another project that we've done in Plymouth recently in partnership with an organisation called Take Apart, with one of our associates, Anne-Marie Culhane, and myself. This is the Shed on Wheels, which I'm very fond of, which is an old milk float, and it's been redeveloped using recycled materials, and basically it travels around communities, it opens up, and it's got a little rocket stove at the back. And again, it's a place for people to learn more about, in an urban context, to learn more about food, to learn more about their resources, but also it's a tool that is right outside, so it also gets people outdoors, walking, connecting with strangers again. This is the Shed on Wheels, and I'm hoping to get a Shed on Wheels for Devon as well. That's one of my plans. So the fourth principle is to co-author. So as an artist, I'm really interested in how do we create a set of structures where all contributions are treated equally, where we're not attached to a particular outcome, and where I don't expect people to come to me. I have to really explore, how do I position myself as a facilitator? So stepping over thresholds and getting involved in things for some people is a massive step. And I'm really aware that if I place some scissors in this way, or if I put a poster up in a certain way, I'm signalling all the time issues around how people can be invited in. Place makes a really big difference, how to create an environment. Someone just said over there, well, that's just like a little haven over there, which for me is like, okay, we've done well today. It's like creating a space where people feel welcomed and where people can add. So often in the shops we might start empty and then it builds up. And when I've been doing a lot of stuff around oral history, for example, I tend to use the same size paper, because somebody who's 80, if you were given loads of paper, might have masses of oral history, but an 8-year-old kid might not have. But for me, it's like I can value both of those contributions and that they seem to be equal. So arts can be a leveler as well. This is one more project just to share. This was a project that we did in the Tamar Valley with the area of outstanding natural beauty. And it was a cordial project that was trying to look at how do we involve communities in talking about climate change and changing landscape. And me and my colleague Anne-Marie Culhane did this project, and it started out by asking people to keep a diary over a month, and we left the diaries in post offices and different places. So they would observe the kind of changing weather, and it was last June, because you can see this is someone dressed as the Queen, it's a sort of jubilee. But that was when there was a massive floods were happening then, and weather. And then we created an installation in a greenhouse where we fed back these stories, and some of the people who kept diaries ended up performing in it. And then the group of people ended up becoming a kind of research group who would then the AOMB and the National Trust could speak to about their changing landscape. And they wouldn't have got there unless they'd come in through the diary project. So it's about how we weave people in, and the arts can do that. I think this is my final principle, is allow for the space between. So what I found over 10 years is that if you allow participants to become an audience and a participant at the same time, then that enables people to contribute and witness at the same time. And in that really contributes a kind of equality, but also a sense of it's not all the pressure for me to participate, and there's a way that I can witness and be part of something at the same time. So these are some outcomes that arts projects deliver: pride of place, increased aspiration, activism, well-being, tolerance, and then just finally, what we're interested in is how arts can invite people to re-look at who and how we are in the world at this time of crisis and opportunity. And then we can work creatively to explore new stories to live by on individual, local and global and citywide levels. So that's my snapshot for you today.